get up and follow that. He just gave the speech right there, folks. He just laid it on you. And an honor to be here today with all of you, men and women who love freedom, men and women who understand that freedom's worth fighting for. And speaking of that, I know there are a number of you in here that are either veterans that are in the active duty military at this particular point in time, or, madam, like you, who are raising some great men and women who serve this country. I just want to, those of you who are veterans, just stand up in this crowd a second so we can just say thank you for your service. Those who have served and are serving right now, stand up just a second so we can say thank you for raising some great kids with wonderful. I'll never forget why we get to live the way that we do. Young men and women who selflessly serve all around the globe. May we never forget their sacrifices. Monsignor, I want to tell you what an honor it is for us to just be down there, Monsignor. There you are. I listened to you talk when you came in. I felt for sure you would be on the right. He did. He came in and he said, I apologize for being late, because he said we got caught up in the presidential motorcade out there. And I said. And he said, I hate to really criticize the president. I said, don't worry about it, Monsignor. You won't be the first nor the last to criticize the president here tonight. So we got it covered. Thank you, Monsignor. Father, thank you for your fill-in service there. Not your first rodeo, as we say in Texas. So you did well. I want to take just a moment of personal privilege and introduce my son, who is here from Texas. Griffin, just wave back there in the end. He is mostly important in my life because he is now the father of the only grandchild that we have. Beautiful, smart, incredibly talented. She'll be a year old this next week, so all of that. And Griffin's got a little, he's got a little business, and he's actually here to raise money. And he said, so I can take care of you, Dad. And I told him, I said, Griffin, you need to understand something. When when your mother and I leave the governor's mansion in about 6.5 months, we will not be dead broke. Some people think that the only thing I do is come to New York and look for businesses to take back to Texas. And I will do that. But I want to share with you why what I do and what Rick Scott and Nikki Haley and Bobby Jindal and those other red state governors are involved with. And Rob, you and I have had this conversation. And if you want to stop us from coming up here, elect Rob Astorino as the next governor. I promise that's how we do it. Those governors make me nervous, I'm telling you. Rick Scott gets up every morning, he's out there looking at regulations and his tax structure and looking to do some tort reform to make Florida even be more competitive than it is. And I can promise you, Bobby Jindal every day gets up, looks to the west, and thinks about what businesses in the state of Texas can I lure to come over into the Bayou State. He does. They make me nervous. New York, not so much. I'm not worried about Andrew Cuomo coming to Texas and getting any businesses and moving them up there. Not going to keep me up. But that's the kind of competition we need in this country. That's what we need happening in America. in these 50 laboratories of innovation. From California to New York to Florida to Washington. Governors and their legislators every day looking at ways to make their states be more competitive economically, putting tax policy into place. And those of you in this audience that are running for offices to go to the federal level, whether it's the United States Congress or in states that have United States Senate candidates, I share with them, listen, the importance of what you do is monumental. That Constitution that our founding fathers put into place is so visionary. It enumerates clearly the powers that are to be maintained in Washington, D.C. at the federal level. I want those individuals to read the Constitution, live the Constitution, respect the Constitution.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, buddy. That's what we want. And then we want them to take a peek at the 10th Amendment and understand that the powers not enumerated for the federal government is reserved for the states and the individuals. Get that right. Do that. Take care of those things, like defending our borders. That would be a good thing for the federal government to do. And then leave those other things, like delivery of health care, educating our children, transportation infrastructure, and I can go on and on, to the states. I promise you that Rob and the members of the legislature that are going to be elected with him can go to Albany and decide better what is in the interest of New York's children in their schools than some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. That he and his colleagues in Albany will know better how to deliver health care to the people of New York State than the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. How do you make this country competitive again? And you do it by electing men and women that respect the Constitution, push these powers back to the state, allow the states to be the ones that make the decisions day in and day out. And I know it works. I know it works because I've seen it for the last decade plus in my home state. 37% of all the private sector new jobs created in America in the last 13 plus years occurred in the state of Texas. Now think about that for a minute. We make up 1 of 12 population-wise. 1 out of every 12 Americans live in that state, but 3 out of 8 of the jobs created in the last 13 years were in that state. The private sector mid-level jobs created, and what I'm talking about is mid-wage jobs. If you took out the jobs from the American job picture over the last decade that were created in the state of Texas, America would be below water.
Wow.
I'm waiting for the president to call me and say thank you. I'm waiting for him to give me a call and say, you know, Mr. President, how'd you do that? Or no, excuse me, not Mr. President. Governor, how'd you do that? Now, that was a total Freudian slip right there. Yeah, I bet that's all over the internet in the next 50 years. That one's going to be happening. But that's the power of what competition does. It's not rocket science. It's really not. What we did in the state of Texas is we put tax policy into place. that addresses the needs of the people of the state of Texas. Father, I mean, our legislature comes, oh, and by the way, our legislature only meets for 140 days every other year. I'm just making some comparisons here. You can figure out what that means. But you put that tax policy into place that's as light a burden on the job creators as you can. Have a regulatory climate that is fair and predictable. A legal system that doesn't allow for oversuing. We passed the most sweeping tort reform in the nation in 2003. Let me tell you what the result of that was. Last year, we had over 34,000 more physicians that were licensed to practice medicine in Texas than we did in 2003. Access to health care. It wasn't about doctors getting richer. It was about access to health care. It was about a Hispanic mom who was pregnant, who in 2003 had to drive outside of their county along the Rio Grande, that today gets to stay in that county because that OBGYN lives in that county. It's about the young child who falls off the bicycle in the Rio Grande Valley. In 2003, they had to be transported 200 or 300 miles away. And you know what the result of that was? And today, neurosurgeons are in that county. Subspecialists have come in all across Texas. Access to health care. That's what's happening in our state. 1,000 people a day are moving into that state. They're not coming because of the weather in August. Okay? They're coming in the pursuit of freedom. They understand that there's a place that freedom is still alive in this country. And it's popping up all over this country. Mr. Long shared with you that there are other states that are following what we put into place. Rick Scott from Florida, again, who's running for re-election, doing a fabulous job down there, who has driven his unemployment rate down, creating jobs in Florida. And he says day after day that we are following the lessons that we've learned from Texas and what they've done. Yes, I believe in competition. I believe in having our public schools that are creating competition in those schools. I believe in charter schools, incentive pay for teachers. That's what we did in the state of Texas, and we've seen our test scores going up. And let me tell you, if you want to know what the proof in the pudding is, you look at the businesses that are relocating or expanding into the state of Texas. As late as last month, Toyota, one of the great names in international manufacturing, they announced that they were going to move their North American headquarters from Torrance, California to Plano, Texas. Again, they're not coming for the weather, I'm thinking. I've been to Torrance, California. It's a beautiful place. I go to California just like I go to New York. And Jerry Brown thinks about the same thing to me as Andrew Cuomo does. But the fact is, we need to talk about this. We need to have a thoughtful, civil, even winsome conversation across this country about what the future of America is. And I will suggest to you that the answers are not going to be found in Washington, D.C. The answers are going to be found in places like Albany, like Austin, like Sacramento, like Tallahassee. It's going to be in these state capitals. Because if we are going to get America back on track, if we're going to take this country to the place that it can be and we know it should be, it's going to be the states that are free from one-size-fits-all in Washington, D.C. and allow these states to compete against each other, to become the laboratories of innovation, to compete, to drive the economy forward. That's the future of America. That's the kind of men and women I'm looking for that will go to Washington, D.C. and say, you know what, we can't be all things to all people. We've got to get our policies in place. We've got to have cogent, thoughtful foreign policy that sends the powerful message to our friends that if you get in trouble, if you get in a bind, we're going to be there for you. And they don't know that today. When you see what's going on in Israel, when you look across the horizon and you see Iran being negotiated with, when you see literally Iraq and Iran being talked about, that we're going to be dealing with Iran as a partner, the world is upside down from my perspective. Washington needs to take care of those enumerated powers that our founding fathers so wisely, thoughtfully, and visionarily put into place. Thomas Jefferson said, "A little rebellion now and then is a good thing." Well, folks, I think it's time for a little rebellion in New York State. I think it's time for you to deliver to Albany, Texas, a man who understands how to run a business, who will stand up and do the job that you need done to make this state a powerful economic engine again. Not small ball. And you're playing small ball right now. I mean, start up New York. The new New York. CEO Magazine, and I put a lot of faith in CEO Magazine, because this is men and women all across this country who are polled and asked, what is the best state in the nation to do business? You didn't think I was going to bring that up if we weren't number one. And New York is 49th. You had more wealth per capita leave this state in the last decade than any other state in the nation. California was number 2. There is a message there. Oh, and by the way, that CEO Magazine, the only thing that kept you from being last was California. That's what's happening out there. And we need to be honest about why those things are happening. And the fact is, it's the special interest in Albany, Texas, that are strangling this state. You need a leader. You need a leader that will go to southern New York State and give those people some hope. To look a blue-collar worker in the eye and say, let me share with you something. I'm going to allow for the exploration of the energy resources in this part of New York. I'm going to give your family an opportunity to dream dreams that they never thought were even possible. We're going to open up New York for hydraulic fracturing and the exploration of oil and gas. We're going to create wealth and jobs. How can you look those people in the face and say, I'm sorry, you can't live like the folks in Tioga, Pennsylvania, Tioga, New York? Because we're beholden to a small sliver of environmental activists, and they're more important to me than your future and your children's future. That's the story that Rob needs to tell. That's the story that Rob will tell. That's the story that will make New York great again. And I will suggest to you, when you leave here, if you will leave with the passion to make this state a great, powerful economic engine again, America would be better for it. That is your challenge. That is all of our challenges. I want New York. I want to wake up and be nervous about New York again. And nervous in the sense of, you know what, I got to get to work in the legislature. We got to cut our taxes some more. We got to make a regulatory climate that's even more fair and predictable. A legal system that's even better for those so that they don't be oversued. Our schools even more competitive. If you do that, if you will leave here with that passion, you can help change the future, not just of New York, not just of this country that we love, but literally the future of the world. That is what you have to do. God bless you. Thank you all.